Okay, next video, bike touring part 4, because I forgot to include some other stuff. Like bike touring, see, once everybody starts making websites like me, like mine, like the one I'm gonna make, where you totally record everything, like how long it took me to get from point A to point B, people are gonna see my website, right? And or not just my website, but everybody's websites, and they're gonna like everybody's gonna know like the record, like how long it took the guy to go like over, across this river and go over the pass to the next river. And it was like, yeah, so and so did it in like 12 hours, man. So then you can be like, oh yeah, and then you do it, and then you go, oh yeah, I did it at 11:30, woo, new record. And in order to make it so you don't lie, you just do your video camera, and you push the video camera, here I am crossing the river, and then you push again, here I am crossing the other river, and you can see on the time on the thing, right? And you can't tweak that. So anyways, it'll just make it really interesting that way. And there'll be like, an infinite amount of different courses, so anybody can have a record for something, but obviously there's going to be some that are more prestigious than others, because there's some rides that are just amazing, like crisscrossing New Zealand, or getting up over, say, bike touring up the Alzuez or something like that. And then of course then people will start bike touring really lightly. And with the whole couch surfing thing, it'll be so easy that people can just be able to camp at anybody's house. There'll be like houses where everybody knows you can bike tour camp, because people like the bike tourists. Because generally bike tourists are really, they're hardworking, trustworthy people anyways, so anybody will let them stay there. So, yeah, the future of bike touring, I think, is going to be really, really big. And then even bike tour groups, people hook up just on the road wherever they are, because there's so many bike tours now. You have like bike tourist pace lanes and stuff. And it's just kind of similar to like, oh man, here I am eating again. It's so disgusting when you eat on the video. Sorry. Like with the bike race, like this 24 Hours of Moab that I did as part of the group. They have like records, like how far you can ride in one day in 24-hour period. And like the people who win it, they don't break at all. They ride 24 hours straight, literally. Like they goes every lap they do. I think the guy's record is like 16 laps, and the girl's record is like 13 laps. Of these, like each lap it takes like an hour or something to go around, and then they sign it, and then they go again. So it's like it's pretty amazing. And I've never actually ridden that far straight without stopping. So that would be trippy. And normally I don't think any of those other people have. Maybe those other people have either, and they only do it at the race. Where they're all motivated to do it because everybody's there together. But with bike touring, you can motivate yourself to do it if it's like a record from here to here, and it took 24 hours. Or it's like if you can do this in less than 24 hours, I'm the first guy to do that in under 24 hours or something. And you can get motivated to do 24-hour rides by yourself. And not need other people to do it. But we'll see. Because I think with this 24-hour bike race back in the past, it was like only one guy who did it, and then it was like a few guys, and then it was one girl, and now it's a few girls and stuff. Actually, when I did it part of a group. I'll tell you my story of it because it was pretty fun. They chose me to be the first guy to start my team. So then I start, and I haven't touched my bike for 2 months. Because I tried to work in Sydney for a month, and I was working in Colorado for a month. But I was still, before that I had bike toured through Australia, so I was still pretty fit, I just didn't have the leg speed. So anyway, they do the thing, the gun, and I run around, and I'm the very first person to get on the bike. I'm the very first person to run up the trail. I figured, I'm not here to win or anything, so I might as well have my have my sunshine just for the fun of it, just for the beginning. And then I blow up, and everybody passes me like I'm like not even moving. And then all this dust gets kicked up, and I like kind of get an asthma attack, but it's not really a bad asthma attack. It's just like, and then and before the race started, I looked around to see who the strongest girl was. I figured I'd maybe be good competition for the strongest girl in the state that I was in at that time. And I saw this one like freakishly skinny, like girl with really long blonde hair with like dreadlocks or like braids or something like that, and I figured she'd be the strongest, so I was kind of keeping an eye out for her. And then, yeah, sure enough, she comes up, and I'm like riding kind of like with her and her group, and I crashed on one, going around one bend, but then I get up, nobody passes me, and then I'm riding. Then that girl actually like rides away from me on this flat 2-track section right on the back, right before this last hill. But then I turn around and I see this other girl, and she's like really like hot, and like she's like 30 feet behind me, so I like slow down to let her like get on my wheel, and I'm kind of like looking back like every like 5 seconds to make sure she's still on my wheel. And I slow up a little bit when I ride away from her. Like she wasn't really fast on that flat section, and then I pulled her up the hill, the climb, and then down the whole backside. When somebody goes, "Oh, that's the first girl. That's the first girl." I guess they didn't see the other girl who was in front of her, and she goes, "Yeah, and I'm doing the whole thing solo too." It's like, oh man, that's hot. So we pull in, and she, like kind of like grins at me, goes off on her second lap. I was like, holy shit. And then like my other teammates did it, these two guys and this girl, and then it was my turn to go. And by now it was nighttime. So then I do it, and yeah, like there was like all these people on the trail, and it was like this big old party, like all these people like, hey, yeah, you go, even at nighttime. This was like 9 or 10 at night or something like that, and it was cool. And I was doing really well, actually. I was like totally kicking ass. I felt like I actually had some leg speed on me, and I wasn't having the asthma because there was no dust up and there was no like crowds of people everywhere like getting in your way. And I go up the backside on the climb, and then both of my chain rings fall off, my big chain rings, because this is like my brother's bike, but I loved it too as a fat gent. I totally loved that bike. It was the awesomest bike ever. And but yeah, those things come off. So then I have to practically like coast down the entire backside. And but I ended up doing really well. I think it was like 10 or 15 minutes faster than my daytime lap. But then like I go to those guys and I'm like, yeah, your turn, and they were like, oh, we were just gonna sleep. We don't want to go. We don't want to do it. So I was like, oh, all right, I'll do another lap on your bike. So I did another lap on my teammate's bike, but I had to like lower the seat like all these times, like a dozen times. I had to stop on the side of the road and lower the seat again with a wrench, and every time it was still too high, and I felt like I'd lowered it like a foot and the freaking seat was still too high. It was the worst bike. It had the worst handling. It freaked me out. When I finally go home and I'm like, I hate your bike. I can't ride it ever again. Go. And like none of my teammates wanted to go. They wanted to sleep. And I was like, well, I'm not going. I had the opportunity to go and do the whole thing solo because my teammates didn't want to do it, but I couldn't do it on that bike, man. That bike was pissing me off. So anyways, we just hung out and like watched it the next day, but it looked really cool. Like all these people there, and the guys who like won it, I think I saw some of the guys who were like top 2 or 3 or whatever, and looked like they were like, the guy would stop and he would like take a drink, it was water, and like hang out with his friends for like a minute, it seemed like, and then go off on his other lap. So I don't know what that was about. Maybe you actually do have to rest, but anyways, I don't know how those guys train, but my point is that bike touring is the best way to train for that. As long as when you're bike touring, you're making sure that you're riding a 24-hour ride, at least every month on the full moons, and maybe 2 for the full moons. One when the moon is half full, becoming full, and then one when it's half full, becoming not full, or something. But anyways, the cool thing about bike touring is that you just record the whole thing. And then, one guy does a bike tour, you get to check out his website, and then you go, okay, cool, I want to do that, only I want to do it even better. And it kind of just grows on each other like that. But anyways, I'm like, oh my god, time again. So that's part 2. Bike touring kicks ass. I'm going to do it. Stay tuned. In 2 months, I'm going to go. All right.